Language choice and situation. Another dimension in which language choice can be analyzed and be understood is with reference to situation. Now the question is, how do we understand situation? Now situation is actually complex because it covers a large range of factors, and thereby it might be confusing if you want to use it in your analysis. This is because it might refer to certain factors that are out there, not only being there individually and affecting language choice, but also occurring together and constraining language choices of individuals. So, how can we define a situation, and what are the factors that might make up a situation that might affect in turn language choice? So, a situation might be defined by who were the participants, who was present there, what was the number of the people, what was the relationship of those participants with each other, what was the physical setting, where was it all happening. Then topics, what was being actually discussed? Was it sports? Was it news? Was it business? Was it economics? Or was it simply you were talking about them, people were talking about themselves? This will also have a different constraining effect on language choice. And then, of course, what were the functions of the discourse? What was the reason why they were actually talking to each other? And that means that the function of the discourse and the why they were talking would affect their style, which would mean whether this is all formal language is used, informal discourse is being used, and how people go about it. So, using situation and trying to analyze situation and looking at it, how it constrains language choice may reveal certain regularities, and we might be able to understand certain habitual uses which keep on occurring again and again. However, it is problematic because there might be a number of factors occurring together, and we might not be able to pinpoint which are the key factors which is leading to those patterns and which are bringing about a change in those language choice patterns. So that means our analysis will reveal something, but not to the extent that we would like to know. This is because such analysis might be difficult to conduct. So, what if we define the situation itself narrowly? We say this is what we mean by situation rather than focusing on all the different factors that might define a situation. And it is suggested that if we look at situation in terms of either formal or informal, whether it is a situation that leads towards solidarity or non-solidarity, whether the function of this situation or if this situation reflects some sort of equality or inequality across the participants, so we might be able to come up with something useful. So what we are saying is, when we are studying situation, it is best to define the situation narrowly and focus on certain aspects, and it is suggested that these three features might actually, in terms of binaries, that is difference between formal, informal, equality, inequality, these are called binaries. Difference between two different variables might be helpful for us to understand the language choice patterns. It is argued that this will help us because as bilinguals, and you need to think about it yourself also, we are fairly clear in our minds regarding the status of the languages we know. We have a feeling which language is a language that we are using, if it is a standard language, if it is a dialect of that language, if it is only a register, if this language is appropriate for formal use, if this language is only appropriate for use among friends. We have this feeling with us. So that would mean if we know this hierarchy of languages or the linguistic set that we have, then the choices we are making in languages is actually in relation to our reading of the situation itself. So if we feel that the situation is formal, we are more likely to use a language that we consider formal. If we read the situation or interpret the situation as unequal, and if we read the situation as informal, then we will respond to it in terms of our own language choice. So this is how it might be useful, and you can think about it how you switch between your English, your Urdu, your regional languages. So you have an idea of how you have been using the languages or choosing between the use of languages based on different situations. And it is a good reflective point to think about it yourself. Now, having said that, it is argued that yes, a situation will constrain how your use of language and how you interpret a situation. You will, of course, determine the choice of language that you will use in response to it. However, it is also argued that the topic that we are talking about might trigger a different language. That means you might be in a very formal situation. You might be sitting in this office meeting, and if there is a little break and someone asks you about your family, you might sort of like switch to another language. So that means at times the topic of your conversation might also trigger language choice. So situation itself, although important, might not be able to explain the difference in language choices or to enable us to sort of come up with language choice patterns. We also need to keep in mind the topic that is being discussed.